Hi, Cecilia. I was just looking at what you submitted here for your color comp, and good. It's a good start for this design. It's interesting. It's got some nice elements. I especially like for this design that you have created a mood for this design. In fact, there are some things in this design that I would typically, for students, kind of discourage them from doing. But with your design, I think with the mood that you are creating, that some of those things work. And I'm just going to explain those to you in your color comp in this video. So the mood that I feel like this design creates, I almost feel like I am stuck in a rose bush or some kind of like, thorny bush, and it's like I'm down in the bottom and I'm looking up, and I all I see are these thorns and the sky above, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get out of this situation. And so some of the design moves that you made, they contributed to that feeling. So I hope that that is the feeling that you are trying to convey with your design. Hopefully I'm not way off base with that, but let me tell you why it feels that way. You've got this surrounding dark, that, and then it comes in and you've got, like an opening looking out, and it looks like a sun, and so, and then you also have these shapes converging into, it draws my eye out of this darkness into this light. Um, and and because they are pointed shapes, it gives the feeling of sharpness, and like, it's gonna, you know, if I, because I want to escape this darkness into the light per se. And I know that because you've got these pointed shapes that I'm going to get pretty scratched up trying to do so. Um, and so that's the feeling that it's created. The reason why I say there's design elements that I usually discourage students, I'm not going to discourage you on this one, um, is first of all, when you have a circle with rings around it, kind of like you have here, and especially if you have it at your focal point, it creates a target feel, like stay on target, um, like a bullseye kind of effect to your design. And typically that's discouraged in a design because it's like, oh, it's kind of like if you have an X in your design, it's like X marks the spot. And it's like, look at me, it's just like screaming at the viewer, hey, look at me, I'm the most important element in this design. And it can be kind of annoying, I guess is a good word for it, for the viewer to be told so directly what to look at. Um, but in this design, I don't feel like that you've created that so much. Perhaps it's due to you don't have a huge amount of value contrast between the ring shapes. I think that helps. Um, and also the feeling that you've created, I think it complements that as well. And then the other thing I usually discourage students from doing is having these diagonal shapes that kind of all point and lead to one direction. It's the same idea. You're screaming at the viewer, hey, look here. Um, and and just being aware of where your diagonals are pointing as well. And so those are things that I'm just going to tell you. I don't mind it for this design because I feel like you have created that mood and you've intentionally broken those parameters, which is a good thing to do. And so good good for you. I feel like I'm kind of breaking the rules that I normally set out for my students, but I'm going to go ahead and let you do this design. Um, okay, so that being said, there are a few things that I want to draw your attention to that might make this design a little bit more interesting. I feel like I feel like there's too much of a transition between the light and the dark coming in. It almost looks like, you know, I'm in a cave, I guess, looking out. And I feel like there needs to be a transition um, between this shape and the darkness. I feel like you need to have an intermediate value, something in between this. This is probably what a value uh, 8, 7 or 8, I would say. Um, Probably value 8. And then this would be like a value 2. And that's a huge jump, 2 or 3. That's a huge jump that you have there. And so I'd like to see some kind of intermediate value in here. And how you decide to do that, if you decide to lean more toward the purple or lean more toward creating a neutralized um, orange, you know, would be up to you. You might want to experiment with that. But some kind of a value shift between these. Be careful to not go too muddy and too brown. That is one of the requirements for the design. We're going to open up the rubric. Is to not use muddy colors. So far you don't have, I mean, you have kind of a neutralized, this background almost becomes gray. And so that you would get marked down for that a little bit. So you're going to want to figure out, you know, what can I do to meet the parameters of the assignment. So obvious color scheme. So you've got like this yellow, orange, and blue, violet. You know, and so perhaps you go blue. Um, you know, on this neutralized blue, like a lightish, a lighter color transitionary, maybe into a kind of a neutralized blue and then into a darker blue might work well for this design. So obvious color schemes, no white, black, and that includes gray as well. And then colors are clean, not muddy. And you're doing a pretty good job with that right now. Just be careful that when you do some transitions that it doesn't turn brown. Let's see, effective use of color saturation. I think you did a pretty good job there. You've got this saturated color that is drawing your eye out. You've got some desaturated, you've created some dominance and subordination with that. I would even experiment perhaps with having some a little bit more variety in some of these shapes. Um, you know, you'll notice like this, and they stand out the most to me because of the value contrast, but this shape and this shape are about the same width. These two shapes are about the same width, and these two shapes are about the same width. And so just pushing a little bit more variety in some of those shapes, you know, maybe having one that goes a little bit thicker, and then, you know, just like just pushing it a little bit more. Maybe another one of these little ones that go a little bit thicker. Pushing a little bit more variety in those shapes. Let's see, small, medium, large. I think you're doing okay with that. Placement of objects within the format. You know, it would be interesting maybe um, to have some openings like around this circle. So you've got all these shapes that are coming in and breaking up this circle. Like, what if you had like some kind of opening, perhaps like some of these shapes right here, where they don't come in so much, but you had a, you know, some kind of interesting something to look at right here. Like what I'm thinking about is like someone leaning over and looking in the hole, or I don't know. You might want to experiment with that with, I mean, it's fine for the final. It would be fine to keep it as is, but just to add a little bit more to the story would be really interesting as well too. So I hope that this critique helps you with your design and gets you thinking a little bit more. I anticipate you'll do fairly well on this design. Um, push some of these, the widths of these circle shapes as well so that they're not all the same as well. And it looks like you kind of aren't, you're breaking out of the mold of the circle too, which is just fine, and that will add some more variety. I didn't see it at first, but there is, this isn't a circle shape per se, it's a different shape. And I think that works out nicely as well. And you might want to do that on, like, a little bit on some of these other shapes to help, perhaps this opening shape isn't quite circular. This one's almost circular. So make sure that your shapes are clean and crisp and that I know what's going on with the edges of the shapes. As you can see, it's almost circular, but it's like kind of jumpy here, and I don't know if that's intentional. So I want to see it be either definitely not intentional or be intentionally round. Um, just make it's a craftsmanship issue. So, but overall, Cecilia, like I said, I hope that helped. I'm kind of allowing you to do things that I normally wouldn't let students do, or would discourage them from doing. But I think your storytelling that you have here is actually working. And so it's okay to break some of those rules to create that feeling of tension in the design. So, keep up the good work. Let me know if you have any questions. Be sure for your final that you're scanning your image in. As you can see, like when you take a photograph, it kind of distorts the image a little bit. Sometimes it'll distort your shapes within the image as well. And so I just need to have that be scanned in to get full credit on craftsmanship as well. So let me know if you have any questions. If you text me, I usually respond within an hour or two, sometimes immediately. If you email me, expect a response within a day or two, or if you post something in the discussion boards. I check those a couple of times a week, and I respond to questions usually, but so let me know what questions you have moving forward. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing what you do for your final. Okay, bye, Cecilia. Have a good week.